What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode. We have got another banger for you. Getting in deep now. So, shout out to Brian Nichols or Brian Nichols. Hope I'm saying that right. She wanted to know about fluoride. Do I have any info on fluoride? I absolutely do. I've got so much info on fluoride, but I don't want to do a whole hour on fluoride. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant the seed and show you some stuff on fluoride, and then you go research it yourself. It's linked with the pineal gland. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is fact. This is scientific. This is, I wouldn't put anything up here if it hadn't been through, an entire study, or multiple studies at that. This was something that if you were in the 80s or the 90s as a child, that they were wanting you to take the little cups, put it in your mouth, swish it around, had absolutely zero medical benefit. In fact, what it did was it lowered testosterone in males, it lowered estrogen in females, it caused all kinds of hormonal issues, and it made you more docile. So look at the enemies to America. The enemies that write books about, what to do when you want to take over a country and not even let them know that they've been taken over. When you want people working their butts off, making them think they're making a good living, but meanwhile, you're controlling them, you're medicating them, you're tearing their bodies up, you're causing dissent between the communities, you're making people think that their skin being different colors is a big deal, so you cause an us versus them mentality. Anytime there's money and an us versus them mentality, you need to be looking at that. That is the first thing you look at. Sorry. I've lived through it. I've lived in socialist countries. I've lived in Soviet Russia behind the Iron Curtain. So just understand that I know what I'm talking about. I know how these things work. I've seen it for myself. And yeah, sometimes on the surface level, it does seem to work. But when you dig deeper, there's always greed, because it's ran by people, and people are flawed. People are messed up. So that's that. So we're going to give Brian or Brianna, we're going to give that person this information, and this information is also for all of you. We're going to start off with fluoride, but we're building, so like I said, you can't get everything at once. I've studied so much of this stuff for most of my life. I'm talking from the time I was 9-10 years old, traveling across the world. Back then you could fly as a child by yourself. I flew to countries all over the world by myself. No issue. Not an issue. You can't do that these days. So anyway, sorry, that was a little rant, but do me a favor, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. It's free to you. It helps me. It helps get this information out there. It helps get people, or make people aware. It helps get it out there to the masses, because they are blocking this information. They don't want this information getting out. They will not put this on the front page. They do not want everybody to see this kind of information. So it's up to you all to support this community, to support what we're trying to do, this awareness. Our main power is awareness, social media. This is how we get this information out there. We can make people aware. And, you might have 100 people, and maybe 5 will, that light will go off. That's great, Do it thousands of more times. 5 each time. Got a bunch more people. It doesn't matter. Get more people aware. That's the goal. Get more people to think for themselves. That's the goal. Doesn't cost you anything. It helps this community out. It helps this cause out. It helps make people aware more than anything. And it's free, like I said. I don't get paid for it. Doesn't cost you a thing. Go ahead and do that. And then you'll be notified whenever I put something new out. I appreciate all of you that have been rocking with me from day one. It's a small start, but for me, it's a big start. It's very big, and I appreciate every last one of you that's rocking with me. So, I truly do. I can't even express upon that how much I truly appreciate all of you. But on that note, you know what? Let's get into it. Let's see what's going on.
CDC agrees with NRC that it is apparent that fluorides have the ability to interfere with the functions of the brain and the body by direct and indirect means.
Yes, CDC in connection with the Intergovernmental Work Group.
It's correct to say that CDC does not have any data on the tolerable upper fluoride intake for neurotoxic effects for infants.
Yes.
Okay. And you see how the definition also includes toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
So CDC does not have any data on the tolerable upper fluoride intake for neurotoxic effects on toddlers.
That's true.
Okay. There's been 2 studies now from the Dr. Who's birth cohort in Mexico City, and there's been 2 studies from the Canadian cohort that Dr. Lanphier has been working on. All 4 of these studies have found significant and large associations between early life fluoride exposure and adverse neurodevelopmental effects.
Do you know where the fluoride, do you know where it comes from? The fluoride that's added to the water. It's from the phosphate fertilizer companies. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid.
It's a byproduct.
That's the nice way to put it. It's a waste product. It's a waste product that they're not allowed to dispose of, because when they were disposing of it, everything around the plants was dying. So they had to start figuring out what to do with their waste. So they said, oh, perfect. We're going to bottle it. We're going to show that fluoride's great for your teeth, so we're going to bottle this acidic, nasty form of it, and we're going to sell it back to the counties. So just like everything else, our tax dollars are paying to poison us, and it's just insanity.
It's the biggest level of insanity, and it's very typical of the systems.
I think it's the biggest. It's our water.
Yeah,
we are 70% water.
They'll use science against us, right? And they'll only give you one angle of that science.
Did you know there was a 6-year study done on how fluoride affects children's IQ? You didn't, because they blocked it from public release. But thanks to a lawsuit filed against the EPA as of March 15, 2023, the report was made public. So regarding the 6-year National Toxicology Review, the results were released, along with comments from external peer reviewers. And what did they say? External peer reviewers all agreed with the report's conclusion that prenatal and early life fluoride exposures can reduce IQ. Where do we get fluoride from? Dental products like toothpaste, mouthwash. When you go to the dentist and you get a fluoride treatment. No shade here, they're doing what they're taught to do to prevent cavities. But it's also in processed beverages and food. Pesticides, teas, fluorinated pharmaceuticals, we'll get back to that. Mechanically deboned meat, Teflon pans, workplace exposures. Hold on, we're not done. Here's the top 10 selling drugs that contain fluoride. Statins like Lipitor, anti-inflammatories like Celebrex, antacids like Prevacid, antidepressants, neuroleptics, and antibiotics. There's a lengthy list of food and drinks that already have fluoride naturally.
Let's pause on that for a second. Look at this. I'll do it so you don't have to. Let's take a look at this. Look at all of this. So let me put it into your head how much they invest into tricking us. So Lay's has an employee, right? She's from India. She's a chemical engineer, Kimmy, right? And call the manager Kimmy. So where she lived, she couldn't get a position for her degree. So Lay's hired her. Her entire job is to put the potato chip. You know, she does quality control, but only on one aspect. So what they did was they brought, you know, a few hundred people in to do studies about what PSI does the chip break at, right? So every so many bags, she pulls a chip, she puts it on this machine, lever goes down, and then as soon as it hits and it snaps, it has to be at a specific PSI. The reason for that is that chip is at that PSI. It's so beautiful to your ears. because you associate that sound with the taste that's also been chemically engineered. So what happens is that crisp sound and the taste from the chemicals that they put in that releases dopamine in your body, right? Just like a drug, just like sugar. You know, you're like, oh, that's it. You know, they invest so. Why do you think all of these study groups exist? They hire so many people to do this. And that's the legal way, but it didn't always used to be legal. They used to illegally do it. They would use prisoners for this kind of research because, you know, they were outside of society. People didn't care about the prisoners. So they would use them to run these tests on. And I'm not talking about potato chip tests. I'm talking about much worse tests, you know, that cost people their lives. But just for a potato chip, you know, quality control, this chip has to snap at this specific PSI every time and has to have this certain frequency to it when it snaps, because they've already figured out the golden formula that makes your body associate that snap and that taste with releasing dopamine. Because like, oh yeah, that is a chip. That's a chip, a good chip, and your body releases dopamine. So they invest a lot of money into that quality control, that practice. It's not even, not only is it not unknown, you know, most people know that. Any big company does that. But the big thing is, people don't understand how they're trying to undermine you as a person, undermine us as people, as humans, as living beings on this planet, because it's all about greed. Like I said, follow the money, follow the us versus them mentality, whatever it is, you know. His hair is short, my hair is long. We hate those short-haired people. Whatever, it can be so minuscule as just something like that. They will cause it.
Naturally occurring in them. And let's not forget all the fluoride that's pumped through our tap water, our drinking water, our bottled water. Did you know that the FDA says that the amount of fluoride contained in bottled water does not require to be listed on the product label unless the label makes the claim that it's got fluoride in it? So I guess my question here is, yeah, they've done studies on putting fluoride in our tap water. It's great for your teeth and bones. Yeah, they've done studies on fluoride treatments at the dentist, putting fluoride in toothpaste, in mouthwashes. It's great for your teeth. I'm not knocking that. But has anybody taken into consideration to do a study on the fluoride that we consume across the board? We all drink water, we all brush our teeth, we all consume food with fluoride in it. 8 glasses recommended, right? Most of us consume fruits and vegetables from the store that have been sprayed with pesticides that have fluoride. Many people in the US take some of these common pharmaceutical medications. Many of us buy deboned chicken, because that's a pain in the ass nobody likes to deal with. I know many of us are smart enough not to be using Teflon pens anymore, but what about the folks that still are? So now that we know it lowers IQ in children, how long do you think we need to wait for all the studies to come out for adults? Guys, I don't know about you, but this shit's getting really old for me. We have to deal with poison in our food, toxicity in all of our household products. Everywhere you turn, there's a hidden agenda or something making us sick, and we don't find out until years later. Start teaching your kids smart choices. Let's get our shit together. Stop being such a consumer. Grow your own food if you can. Make healthy swaps in the home that are non-toxic. And let's do our best to educate this next generation and question everything, do their own research, so they don't end up being sad, sick sheep like us.
Look, Mom! No cavities! Procter & Gamble announces Crest toothpaste with Fluorestan, its exclusive fluoride compound, world's greatest weapon against decay.
So, you're Alcoa in the 1930s, a giant corporation that makes products out of aluminum. And honestly, you've created some pretty amazing things. Tea kettles, foil, airplane parts. But one thing that sucks about manufacturing aluminum is that it's a super messy process. Because, guess what? Raw aluminum doesn't come all perfect and soft and ready to be molded into a frying pan. It needs to be chemically processed and broken down. And this chemical process produces a lot of highly toxic chemicals like ammonia, methane, and fluoride. And we're not talking about the natural fluoride that occurs in caves and stuff. We're talking about an artificial, man-made fluoride compound that is way more toxic. Like, really, really toxic.
Hydrofluorosilicic acid does not occur in nature. It's a man-made molecule. And it eats through concrete, glass, stainless steel, fiberglass, plastic. You name it, it'll eat it.
The problem is, it would be super expensive to dispose of this toxic fluoride in a safe and responsible way. So, it's a 1930s factory owner to do. Why not pipe it into the air or dump it in the river? I mean, come on, it's the 1930s. This is the dawn of the industrial age. No one cares that factories are dumping toxic chemicals into the river. No one even knows what the long-term effects of these industrial waste chemicals are. They're too busy making up for prohibition. So, as the years went by, you continued to flood the rivers with this fluoride waste. And everything was going fine and dandy for decades. Until things started to go south. See, you've been dumping fluoride into the air and water for over 30 years now, and people were starting to notice. Alcoa factory workers were showing symptoms of poisoning from the fluoride gases. Cows from nearby farms were getting really weak. They couldn't even stand on their own anymore. And local dentists were starting to notice strange brown stains and chipping on the teeth of children who live nearby. Fluoride is starting to get bad press. So if you want to survive this and thrive, then you gotta do something drastic.
Yes, Crest can really reduce cavities because only Crest has Fluorostan, an exclusive stannous fluoride formula that protects your whole family.
It's good for teeth. It prevents cavities. When in reality, too much fluoride has been connected to brain damage, skeletal fluorosis, bone cancer, and lower IQ in children.
What we did was we exposed them, let them drink the fluoride in the water for 6 to 20 weeks. The pattern that we saw, it typically is what we see with other neurotoxic agents that are well known to cause a hypoactivity or a memory problem or an IQ problem. When I first presented the results of these studies, one of the individuals sitting and listening to the results, he says, "Do you have any idea what you're saying?" And he says, "You're telling us that we're reducing the IQ of children."
Fluoridation of community water is extremely safe and extremely effective in preventing tooth decay. Science is on the side of fluoride being safe and effective. There is no controversy about this in the scientific community.
On teeth to prevent cavities.
And by 1955, Crest releases a new product that would be the last nail in the coffin for fluoride's new positive public image.
Crest toothpaste with Fluorostan, its exclusive fluoride compound that's far superior to fluoride alone.
The world's first fluoride toothpaste.
They actually started working with the fluoride and did the original toxicology studies. And they described what happened to some of these people when they were accidentally overexposed to fluoride.
Her name was Phyllis Mullenix.
Started her career at the University of Kansas with a PhD in pharmacology with a specialty in neurotoxicology.
It was 1982. And Phyllis had just started her new job at the Forsyth Dental Center in Boston. Her mission? Testing the toxicity levels of different chemicals, including fluoride. And so, she went through the usual motions. She fed fluoride-laced water to rats and observed their behavior. And what she saw was kinda terrifying. The pregnant rats who were fed fluoridated water were giving birth to hyperactive babies. They were also mentally slower than the rats whose mothers weren't fed the water. Phyllis also noted that male rats were more easily affected by fluoride in the womb, whereas females were more affected when they drank the water later as young adults. And what's interesting about this study is that it aligns with another study that was published in Canada in 2019. Where the male babies of human mothers that drank fluoridated water showed signs of lowered IQ and hyperactivity, while the females did not.
There was no question that behavior was vulnerable to fluoride. Whether you got a very short exposure, and this in animals, if they're young, if it's prenatal, or if it's early postnatal, all you needed was 2 or 3 days exposure to this, and it caused a permanent change in behavior when the animals grew up.
Phyllis got pretty excited about this. So excited that she typed out a whole paper and submitted it to the Journal of Neurotoxicology and Teratology. What she didn't know was that she was being watched by none other than Harold Hodge, the head researcher of the Manhattan Project. Yeah, he was still alive at the time. And Hodge was really not happy about this nonsense on the toxicity of fluoride. To top all this off, the Dental Center also didn't want this paper published because they're being funded by pro-fluoride organizations, and that would be a huge conflict of interest. So yeah, this meddling lady needs to go. So what do? You corner the rat and threaten to fire her if she publishes the paper. And what did Phyllis do in response? She published it anyway. After Phyllis turned in her lab coat, she found out the truth on who this Hodge guy really was and why he was always hovering over her experiments at the Dental Center.
It can reduce decay, and 5,000 kids like these help prove it. No toothpaste fights cavities better than New Gleam.
And Gleam tastes good.
Fast forward to today, and fluoride is still a really big household name. And anyone who questions it is instantly labeled as a conspiracy theorist of Alex Jones standards. But the reality is, fluoride is a double-edged sword. On one side, it is a miracle for your teeth. But on the other hand, too much of it can cause a whole bunch of disorders and diseases. And the scientific community has been fighting over this for decades. Phyllis's study was criticized for using too much fluoride in her water at 5 parts per million, whereas the US government's recommendation at the time was 1 part per million. But think about this. Just because you mix fluoride into the water supply at 1 part per million doesn't mean that's what people are actually consuming. What about all the food products that are made with fluoridated water? Raisins contain fluoride at 2.34 parts per million, wine at 2.02 parts per million, and black tea at 3.73.
Is that when I drank a Coke, when I drank Snapple tea, when I drank grape juice, that I was really adding to my body burden of fluoride with all these others.
The American people, and especially our children, are getting way too much fluoride. 2/3 of children living in fluoridated communities have dental fluorosis in at least one tooth. Dental fluorosis is the visible manifestation of toxic overexposure to fluoride during their developmental years.
And let's not forget the undisclosed dumping of fluoride by factories into the water and air. So that 1 part per million turns to 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts pretty fast, with fluoridated water at 4 ppm being found to cause bone fractures and skeletal fluorosis in children. It all depends on how much fluoride you actually consume, not how much the government dumps in the water supply, which is next to impossible for the average person to calculate. Our system filters some of it out, but not all of it. One study showed that only 50% of fluoride gets filtered out of the body. So where does the rest go? It gets absorbed into your bones. And according to Phyllis, it also absorbs into your brain.
You should not be messing around with things like this, and all of a sudden, just like this, borax was completely removed from 30 countries because it competed with the people who were selling the poison for the arthritis, osteoporosis, and all of the other bone-related companies, right? So all of those industries right here. So when you get into this, it's a very interesting topic. And the other part of borax, which is not talked about, is that it can pull morgellons, right? So when people have morgellons in their body, which are kind of like these little, like, alive robots, that's the best way to describe it. It can pull that out of the system, right? And they've shown this with morgellons and nanos, right? Anything in the nanos as well too. And what's also interesting is borax is the counter towards fluoride, right? So with all this fluoride, which is a neurotoxin that's being placed into the public water supply and into foods and things like that, borax is the counter, right? If a pinch of borax is placed into the water, it counteracts the fluoride that's placed into the water. So, like I said, it's when you get into this topic, it's a very...
Did you hear what he just said? So, whole thing about fluoride, so you've got these toxins, and you've got fluoride. Let me go back just so you guys can hear this. Just listen.
That's placed into the water. So, like I said, it's when you get into this topic, it's a very touchy topic because it competes with so many industries. So when this whole borax thing was going on in the 1980s, they banned it in 30 different countries because it competes with all of these industries. So that was the whole point of this, why I wanted to bring light to this topic. And as somebody said, how do you get it? You can just look it up. Just type in borax, and you can just look up, you know, it's like 20 mule. I think it's 20 mule or 21 mule. And they're, I believe they're based right out of Utah or California, whichever one it is. And that's it. You can just get it. You can just find it online. They ship all over the place. You know, and that's the thing. It's still shippable in the United States. Now, if you're outside of the United States, that can be a little challenging.
So that's the sad part. He's talking about, you know, it's public, and I know you guys have heard this. You gotta tell us what they do before they do it. It's universal law. If they do not let it be known what they do, and we don't object, then there's consequences. It's fine for them to do that. So the way they've been doing that is subliminally, or they've been putting it in cartoons or blatantly coming out there and saying it. The thing is, people think that they're so, you know, right feel like there's no way this is possible. Come on. But you know what? I want you guys to look up a site, ewg.com. ewg.com. Go there, type in your zip code, and they can tell you exactly what's in the water wherever you are in this country. I donate to them every month. In fact, I just sent a test kit back to them to let them test my water. They told me what was in my water, but they also sent me a test kit, and I used it and sent it back to them. Obviously, I don't drink, unfiltered water. I don't let anyone have any unfiltered water. I keep everything filtered. Everything is good for you, but even filters are, you know, you have to make sure you have the right type of filter. So I wouldn't let my family drink, you know, unfiltered water. I wouldn't let my family drink water straight from the tap, because the FDA will allow a certain percentage of things in your water. So if I gave you a glass of water and said, hey, are you parched? Have this water. By the way, there's 8% lead in the water. But you know what? The FDA says it's safe, so you're good. You know, hydrate yourself with that. Would you drink it? No, nobody would. Nobody in their right mind would. But that's just one thing that they let us put in the water. So just remember that. Remember that. We're building now. We're doing something. So just...
Countries now that have banned the use of fluoride. China, Austria, Belgium, Finland, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, Hungary, and Japan. All these countries have said that fluoride, number one, is ineffective and toxic and should not be used. We are still using it.
Only 8 countries in the world have more than 50% of their population drinking water. America, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Israel, Singapore, Malaysia, and Colombia. Only 8.
Investigative journalist Christopher Bryson examines fluoride's disturbing history. Bryson notes that in its early days, fluoride was a widely known and well-documented killer. Documentation from early lawsuits against fluoride manufacturers clearly shows that fluoride was a hazard, not only to humans, but to the environment as well, with damages reaching into the tens of millions of dollars. By 1930, the aluminum industry was the largest and most influential fluoride polluter. Fluoridation provided the chemical industry an opportunity to void liability of their poisonous fluoride waste by means of promoting it as a health benefit.
Scientific studies reveal that by the time a person reaches their mid-30s, the pineal gland can become like a small, hard pebble made of fluoride. In simple terms, when the pineal gland is calcified, it interferes with our basic biological functions, causing imbalances. Ancient traditions recognized the importance of the pineal gland and considered it vital for intuition and spiritual development. In today's increasingly toxic world, it's crucial to keep the pineal gland active and healthy to unlock our full potential. According to an article on Mercola.com, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the American Dental Association have advised against fluoridation in situations affecting young children. The article also highlights several negative effects of fluoride ingestion, which were mentioned by Dr. Mercola. Increases lead absorption, which can be harmful to health, may lead to dementia, affecting memory and cognitive abilities, could cause genetic damage and cell death in the body's cells, disrupts collagen synthesis, impacting the strength of bones and tissues, increases the risk of bone fractures, potentially raises the rates of tumors and cancer, can cause hyperactivity or lethargy in some individuals, harms sperm and may contribute to infertility, damages the brain and lowers IQ, impairs sleep by reducing melatonin production in the pineal gland, and possibly more negative effects not mentioned in the excerpt. It's important to be aware of these potential risks associated with fluoride ingestion. Detoxifying and activating your third eye can lead to significant improvements in your life. When your third eye is open, you may experience enhanced clarity, concentration, happiness, intuition, and better decision-making. In addition to these positive effects, activating the third eye may also bring vivid dreams that feel real and memorable, lucid dreams where you become aware that you're dreaming and you can control your actions in the dream.
I want to pause right here. So, I'm not sure how many people will truly comprehend what I'm about to say. So, he's talking about, you'll know you're dreaming and control your dreams. So when I was 7, I have an amazing mother. Passed 2 years ago. I said that before. October 21st. But my mother, when I was 7, I was having very vivid dreams. And my mother, having, at that time she was a 2-time war veteran. She was a 3-time war veteran. She passed. Been to over 60 countries. I've only been to half of what you've been to, so what I know I picked up from her and plus my own experiences. But anyways, that's besides the point. She taught me how to realize I'm dreaming and take control of dreams. Now, she started teaching me this when I was 7. I never took control of my dreams until I was I did it once or twice, between the time I was 7 and 13 or 14. But it was really when I was 14 and 15, I could be asleep, understand that I'm asleep, and actually, sorry about that, and actually take control of my dreams. And because you're looking at it almost as a first-person shooter game, and then you're like, hey, I'm asleep. I understand this. And then you can do whatever you want to do. Personally, I'm flying around like Superman, fighting off people, because for some reason I was always being chased or followed or something like that. And then once I realize I'm dreaming, it's like all of my, I would normally say superpowers, but I would say my real self kicked in. I could just take off and do whatever I wanted. And whoever was trying to, however many of them, whatever they were, whoever they were trying to get at me, I was unstoppable. They could not get close to me, to the point to it was fun, you know. And I didn't know this, but people who would, you know, sleep over with me, friends and stuff, would always say I'm laughing in my sleep a lot. Sometimes I might not remember my dreams. And they're like, man, you were just sleeping, just cracking up, just, you know, busting a gut laughing so hard. What were you dreaming about? And, you know, sometimes I didn't know, but other times I did know. And it's hard for you to try to explain that to someone. But once you can realize that, yeah, hey, I'm asleep. This is my realm. I can do what I want. Nothing can touch me here. Well, something can, but the things that are trying to touch me can't. That's for sure. Because we have been given dominion over all of that. That's all I want to say.
Is your astral projection, which is the ability to consciously travel outside your body during sleep. Improved sleep leading to better rest and rejuvenation. Enhanced imagination allowing you to tap into your creative potential. The ability to see auras, energy, beings, and even visions with your eyes closed. Clearer channels to perceive and interact with energy around you. On the other hand, if your third eye remains closed or inactive, referred to as the Ajna chakra in Hindu tradition, you may experience negative effects such as confusion, uncertainty, cynicism, pessimism, jealousy, envy, and one-sided thinking. By detoxifying and activating your pineal gland, you can unlock these beneficial effects and improve your overall well.
Now, some of you may say, well, what good is that? Well, if you look at these solfeggio frequencies, you know, the shapes that they cause, and all of these complex geometrical patterns, the Indian boy that invented, well, he didn't invent them, he shown them, but he was illiterate. And that kind of math, doctrine-wise, hadn't been invented yet. The shapes that he was coming up with, geometrical patterns, are what we see in the solfeggio frequencies. He could not read, he could not write, but he knew these patterns, you know. So just take that into consideration. You hear people talk about, you know, that's a God-given gift. You know? It doesn't matter what God they're referring to. They're referring to the fact that they know that he's illiterate, can't write, can't read, but all of a sudden he's filing these complex manifestations that he's having and dictating them. You know, he's writing them down. He's putting them out there for people, and he may not understand it at the time, but it made perfect sense, not only to people, but to science, mathematically, logically. It made sense. And we have that everywhere today. People don't even understand that. That's the sad part. So sad.
Hey, I'm finna tell y'all some things about fluoride that your doctor or dentist won't tell you. So in the late 1990s, an English scientist by the name of Jennifer Luke converted the first study of the effects of sodium fluoride on the pineal gland. In her study, she found that the pineal gland absorbed more sodium fluoride than any other physical matter within the body, even the bones. In this extensive study, she concluded and proved that the pineal gland was a direct target of fluoride. This toxic ingredient is found in food, beverages, rat poisoning, and is even in 90% of the United States water supply. Make sure you eat organically grown alkaline foods, family. Get you the right type of filter in your house. And last but for sure not least, get you some natural fluoride-free toothpaste. Yeah, I said natural because a lot of these toothpaste say they fluoride-free, but they still be unnatural, right? But if you ain't found none yet, tap in with Elixir Herb Shop Coconut Mint. We're going to get you right.
So there's a few reasons why fluoride is not good for the pineal gland within your brain. Because our bodies retain 80% or more of the fluoride that we ingest, a lot of it accumulates in our bones, and the place that it accumulates the most is the pineal gland. And that's not good because the pineal gland is very small and it controls many important things. For example, it produces and regulates melatonin, which regulates your sleep schedule, which can be very important. Without proper sleep, that can lead to a lot of different issues. When fluoride builds up in the pineal gland, it then forms crystals, which creates a hard shell. When the pineal gland starts getting crystallized, that's when the problems can begin, including the sleep issues, but it can also affect women's menstrual cycle and fertility, and lead to conditions such as schizophrenia and Alzheimer's disease. Studies are still being done to see if there's still more side effects that we don't know about yet.
So let me just say this. Our senses are dumb. So light is a spectrum. So you have this vast spectrum. We can only see into this three-dimensional part of this spectrum. We can only see so many colors and 3 dimensions out of this vast spectrum, right? Now, if I were to tell you that you can see without eyes, smell without nose, hear without ears, you wouldn't believe me. But there's a few years ago, well, maybe 8 years ago, he was a boy. He's now a man. So there's a guy, I believe he's African, and he was born blind, completely blind. And because he was blind, he couldn't read or write. So he was what they would call illiterate. But he figured out a way, just like dolphins and bats, to use echolocation. So he would make these little clicks with his mouth. Probably not like that, but it was much louder. So they brought all this high-tech equipment, these super high-speed cameras, different cameras that shoot in different spectrums, infrared, night vision, all these different things. And they put him in a garage. And I'll find this and show it to you if you guys really want to see it. If you do, let me know in the comments. I'll find it and put it up. But what they do is they put him in a garage, close the garage. He can use his walking stick or his clicks for echolocation. And they close the garage, pitch black, right? So they have these little stands with different objects on them, just placed sporadically in the garage. They want him to walk from one side of the garage to the next and hit every single stand and tell them what's on it. Well, not only did he do exactly as they asked, but he even told them what color it was, which of course the infrared camera does not pick that up, So he's like, you thought you fooled me. This is a tennis ball, but you gave me a blue tennis ball, knowing most tennis balls are green. So he knew this because our sensors are translators. They're dumb. They're very dumb. As a human, I'm not saying this to be insulting. They're dumb. Just like if you want your printer to talk to your computer, you need a translator in the middle. If your printer speaks Spanish, your computer speaks English, you need what's called a driver in the middle as the translator to let them communicate. Same thing with your senses. Your optic nerve comes out to your eye, see, your ears, your mouth, taste, smell, all of these things go back to pieces of your brain. They're all translators, and there's a driver in there that allows you to translate. That's why you can be wrong. Someone else can be right, and you've heard the same thing. That's why 100 people can hear the same thing or see the same thing, and you'll have 70 or 80 different things that they think they saw. But it was only one thing. It's because there's a degree of accuracy to all of this. But our receptors are stupid compared to the animal kingdom, compared to nature, compared to anything. They're very stupid, very dumb. But this man learned to see without eyes. Without eyes, he could see better than any equipment. We don't have any equipment that can do what he can do. He can do echolocation, see in the dark, and see color in the dark, exact color. We don't have anything like that. Oh, he could also see slight heat signatures. So you're talking a bit of infrared with heat signatures there. A person could do this, but he did not have eyes. Not do it with his eyes. That goes to show you, excuse me, your transmitters are faulty. They always have been. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from. So you're talking these Atlanteans or these, extra-dimensional beings that are teaching us these things. Now, they're not of this realm. This realm is 3D. It's dense. It's super dense. Dense meaning tight, like a super tight snowball. Now, if you have a loose snowball, you throw it at somebody, it bursts everywhere. But you make one super dense and tight, it's going to be smaller, heavier, and when you throw it, it's going to hit harder. That kind of density. This is the densest place could ever exist, and it's difficult being here. And that's why all of this stuff doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Just remember that when when something else comes up.
Procter & Gamble announces Crest toothpaste with Fluorestan, its exclusive fluoride compound, world's greatest weapon against decay.
Look, Mom, no cavities.
Former employees of Occidental Chemical Corporation have filed a lawsuit against the company. They say they have life-threatening diseases
like leukemia, emphysema, and toxic brain syndrome. For years, doctors struggled to diagnose them, but finally they found a common link. It was
fluoride.
It's a byproduct that they can't do anything with. It's a poison, so they sell it.
You allow industry to use your water supply to dispose of their hazardous waste. It was a scam from the get-go. It is a means of getting rid of fluoride. It's a disposal mechanism.
It's bizarre. Fluoridation is the worst recycling practice in the world.
So, you're Alcoa in the 1930s, a giant corporation that makes products out of aluminum. And honestly, you've created some pretty amazing things. Tea kettles, foil, airplane parts. But one thing that sucks about manufacturing aluminum is that it's a super messy process. Because, guess what? Raw aluminum doesn't come all perfect and soft and ready to be molded into a frying pan. It needs to be chemically processed and broken down. And this chemical process produces a lot of highly toxic chemicals like ammonia, methane, and fluoride. And we're not talking about the natural fluoride that occurs in caves and stuff. We're talking about an artificial, man-made fluoride compound that is way more toxic. Like really, really toxic.
Hydrofluorosilicic acid does not occur in nature. It's a man-made molecule. And it eats through concrete, glass, stainless steel, fiberglass, plastic. You name it, it'll eat it.
The problem is, it would be super expensive to dispose of this toxic fluoride in a safe and responsible way. So, it's a 1930s factory owner to do. Why not pipe it into the air or dump it in the river? I mean, come on, it's the 1930s. This is the dawn of the industrial age. No one cares that factories are dumping toxic chemicals into the river. No one even knows what the long-term effects of these industrial waste chemicals are. They're too busy making up for prohibition or whatever people did in the 30s. So, as the years went by, you continued to flood the rivers with this fluoride waste. And everything was going fine and dandy for decades. Until things started to go south. See, you've been dumping fluoride into the air and water for over 30 years now, and people were starting to notice. Alcoa factory workers were showing symptoms of poisoning from the fluoride gases. Cows from nearby farms were getting really weak. They couldn't even stand on their own anymore. And local dentists were starting to notice strange brown stains and chipping on the teeth of children who live nearby. Fluoride is starting to get bad press. And if that bad press continued, everyone would start connecting the dots to you and your fluoride river dumping frenzy. If that happens, you're going to be buried with expensive lawsuits. it would be the end of you. So if you want to survive this and thrive, then you gotta do something drastic. You gotta find a way to change the public's perception of fluoride from this toxic, poisonous chemical to something that's good for you. And this effort to rebrand fluoride into a healthy chemical would be one of the greatest propaganda efforts known to mankind. It's why today, fluoride has seeped into everything. It's in your toothpaste.
Chemical? You're gonna put some chemical in my mouth?
Tap water, table salt, bottled water.
Yes, Crest can really reduce cavities because only Crest has Fluorostan, an exclusive stannous fluoride formula that protects your whole family.
Chemical leak this afternoon in Rock Island. The chemical was so strong that it was burning through the concrete there.
It was just before 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon when hazmat crews were called to the Rock Island water treatment plant for a chemical spill coming from this tanker truck. The chemical hydrofluorosilic acid is used to add fluoride to the plant's water. After several hours, crews were able to clean up the leak, allowing operations to return to normal.
The treatment of the water and the amount of water being used by the public, there's no effect on that at all.
So why are we putting that in the water?
The United States, Canada, Australia, Ireland, and New Zealand generously provide you with the fluoride in your tap water free of charge. Why? Because it's good for you, they say. It's good for teeth. It prevents cavities.
To say things like tobacco's harmless, fluoride is harmless. Agent Orange is harmless, they say. DDT was harmless.
Asbestos, right?
Yeah, GMOs now, they say, are harmless. There's a long history of science selling out to corporate interests while the people are systematically poisoned.
And to this day, people still believe fluoride is safe in the drinking water, and the majority of dentists still believe it's safe to put in toothpaste and to put in different types of compounds.
When in reality, too much fluoride has been connected to brain damage, skeletal fluorosis, bone cancer, and lower IQ in children.
What we did was we exposed them, let them drink the fluoride in the water for 6 to 20 weeks. The pattern that we saw, it typically is what we see with other neurotoxic agents that are well known to cause a hypoactivity or a memory problem or an IQ problem. When I first presented the results of these studies, one of the individuals sitting and listening to the results, he says, "Do you have any idea what you're saying?" And he says, "You're telling us that we're reducing the IQ of children."
And yet, the government won't let you escape it even if you wanted to.
It's acidic. It'll kill you.
And it all started because Alcoa didn't want to get sued.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk. So, one guy I want you all to look up is Jordan Maxwell, Maxwll. I've got quite a few videos on him. He will be in my next one, but I wanted to put this out there specifically for the fluoride and pineal gland connectivity. Show how that is connected, because you know, some people you just can't reach. They're like, no, they would never do this to us. You're talking about this much money? These plans have been documented to go back to the 18th century of how to weaken, control, and destroy a nation. And these plans have all come into play, and much more. And the thing is, they seem so drastic and so... what's the word? It seems like such a long shot, but they're really doing this. Excuse me. And that's the whole point. They want you to believe that they're on your side. They want you to believe, oh, are you a tinfoil hat person? What is wrong with you? How could we do that? They've been doing it. They've been doing it. And it's time we stop that. It's time we understand that we all are one. It doesn't matter how we look. It matters what we stand for. We stand for ourselves, humanity. Ourselves as people, as humans. We're not with the greed. We're not with the agenda. We're with keeping tabs on them the way they do us. And we're trying to break free of all of these chains, but think about it. Think of every little chain they've put upon us. Television, dumbing down our youth, dumbing down us. Fluoride, lowering testosterone, lowering estrogen, making it easier to control people. Every little thing they've been doing. Every little thing. That's why all these, government cooperates with corporations and vice versa, and they're all in bed with each other. Think about these things, because it goes so much deeper than you can ever imagine, and so much deeper than I could ever explain in 50 videos. I'm giving you a spoonful at a time, because I can't give it to you all at once. It would overwhelm you. So we're gonna get there, but do me a favor. I'm going to stop it here. I got a lot more stuff built up for tomorrow, so do me a favor. Smash that like, subscribe, notification bell. Get this out to everybody, and let's keep it moving, Shout out to everybody that's been sticking with me. I truly appreciate you. I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart, but we've got to stick together. Think of your contingency plan. Do you have water? Do you have natural food for your families if something happens? Think about that. If the answer is no, I can show you where to get it at a good price, cheap. I'm not sponsored. It's just what I do. See you next time.